the guru of Squad 00, the assassin like no other. Yes, I'm the best at what I do. One of the most notorious in YouTube and money market community. Don't doubt the interview. Please, don't do it. Now, I was asked, I don't know, a few months ago, I suppose, about the subject of rivals, because I had finished up my mini-series, various types of characters when it came to the arts. It was, hero, villains, heroes, anti-heroes, and anti-villains. And I said, bring some more suggestions. And a couple times, 2 or 3 times, I think by a couple different subscribers, talked about, they wanted me to talk about rivals and rivalries. And I considered, I contemplated, put some thought into, stepped away from it, came back to it, stepped away again, came back, was reminded, a whole slew of things. And I'm finally here to talk about it. This is actually one of the harder discussions with art, because it's one of the things that relies more on real life, if you would, more so than being an artistic principle, being an archetype, being, a description. Rivalries. Now, it's hard for a rivalry not to be great. It is. Because the essence of a rivalry is beyond simply competition. The essence of a rivalry is about growth. It's about the stories behind the rivalry, the backstories, the conflicts themselves, the individuals involved in the rivalry. And then you extend from there. The history, the legacy. There's so much that goes into rivalries. There really isn't a bad rivalry, because a bad rivalry is no rivalry at all. If it's one-sided, it still may be a rivalry. It doesn't make it a bad rivalry. The only way something can be a bad rivalry is if it is wrongly described as a rivalry. What I mean by that? There are some teams that, let's say, I'm basing this off of real life. Let's say some teams are in the same state, and they face each other every year. And say basketball, football, which is soccer over here in the States, in North America. Let's just say they face each other, and one team just owns the quote-unquote rival. That's not a rivalry. The only time it's a rivalry, but it's a lopsided rivalry, is if the intensity is there, is if there's bad blood, is if, there is loyalty. There's a few other aspects with team sports and whatever else. But in general, specifically when it comes to arts, rivals are on par or near each other. They can compete with one another. When people try to make this false claim, that rivals, just because of their position in the plot and the story, makes them a rival, no, that junk doesn't work. For example, Luffy and Kobe. Luffy and Kobe clearly are not rivals. Why? For 3 reasons. Number 1, Kobe stands no chance against Luffy. Never has, and doubtfully ever will. Point number 2. Luffy is the inspiration for Kobe to become who he is. That was point number 2, Point number 3, they're friends. They started out as friends. They never started out on odds with each other. If you look at real life, you look at some of the greatest rivalries individually. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Irvin Magic Johnson and Larry Bird is amongst the greatest. If you look at team sports, you had Duke and UNC in college basketball. There's so many college football that I could name. Professional sports, there's just so many. There was Ali versus Frazier. Muhammad Ali versus Smoking Joe Frazier, for example. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Roberto Duran. The list goes on and on. There was, those legendary competitions. Right? When you look at anime and manga, you can bring up Kurosaki Ichigo and Grimjow. It's an okay rival. It's okay. It's definitely rivals. The one of the most legendary rivalries of all time, Goku and Vegeta. We see what I mean. They that is pretty much the archetype for rivalry in fiction, in the arts. Okay. You could say to a lesser degree the two families in Romeo and Juliet were rivals with one another. Okay, Hatfields and McCoys, if we're going back to a real life reference. So there has to be a certain level of competition. Eventually, rivalries will establish respect. Okay, it's a very strange, very intoxicating, very fascinating relationship. Very symbiotic relationship, to say the least. Spider-Man and Venom. Okay, Peter Parker and Eddie Brock. Phenomenal example of rivals. Rivals, rivals can go in the opposite direction as well. I would argue to say, Goliath, was Demona in Gargoyles a rival of Goliath? Possibly. More so, Demona was more of Lisa, and Xanados was more of a rival to Goliath. Okay. Let's see, who else? I mean, there's so many examples in fiction of rivals. You can come up with Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, and their rivalry. One, it's not on the level of Goku and Vegeta's, but it's another good example. Rock Lee and Hyuga Neji, and another one in the series of Naruto. Clear rival, breaking it down of what a rivalry and what it takes is kind of hard. It's a very organic relationship, a very special relationship, a relationship necessitated on high caliber competition. The goals, one strives to be greater than the other. That's often how it happens. For example, Vegeta strived to be greater than Goku, and it created this rivalry and this constant contention, this constant competition. Sometimes it's both that's greater than the other. They have to be of somewhat similar characteristics. They may be opposites to a degree, but they have to have similarities. There has to be a similar thing in which they're fighting for, okay, which they're competing for. They have to present a long-term investment in the story. It can't just be this one-time deal. It has to be an ongoing thing, like Kenshiro and Rao in Fist of the North Star. Okay, I'm trying to think of just various. You could say to a degree, Kamishiro Yu. Well, Kamishiro Yu's rivals are kind of interesting. Kamishiro Yu and Shogo, as well as Kamishiro Yu and Aizawa Masaki, both very interesting rivalries. If you know the series of Holy Land, you'll understand. It's very interesting, but you can't say they were not rivals. They had very weird relationships in the sense of even rivalries, but they were rivals nonetheless. Rivalries, the reason I'm having a hard time breaking it down the ins and outs is because there's no cookie cutter formula. There's no set situation of rivals. Rivals just show up. It's just they happen to be in the same era at the same time, on the same kind of level, the same drive, the same similar motivation, similar, they just happen, and they just two forces that are colliding into each other. Not exactly in this case, but kind of the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. See what I'm saying? It can be, rivalries can start off very small and explode. Rivalries can be at the highest level. There's a whole lot of wiggle room in there. Rivalries are sometimes just very personal. Other times they mean way more. You got everything on your back. You got cultures clashing. Okay? You have sometimes nation, lifestyle, ideologies. A lot of times it's ideologies and philosophies, to break it down. But the arts utilizes rivals because it's one of the realer aspects and one of the more relatable and one of the ones that are praiseworthy when it comes to real life. Competition at its purest sense. See what I'm saying? You can have rivals in even corporations, companies, nations can be rivals. Anything, pretty much. Animals rival each other. You name it, can rival one another. It just depends on how things are pitted, depends on the perspective of the situation, and whatnot. Unexpected one, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me some of your favorite rivalries in fiction and otherwise. It's a very interesting concept. I was kind of surprised that I was asked. I was asking about the arts, but the fact that many people are so invested in the arts that they recognize the validity of such a state. Alright, y'all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night. Peace. More art topics on the way. More stuff.